There's a new multi-pronged effort to crack down on leaks in Washington. The man tasked with plugging those drips from the White House is coming up on Hannity in an hour. Here is a preview clip from Sean's interview with new communications director Anthony Scaramucci.
Some people think that we're naive, and when I've said I'm going to get rid of the leaks, I know I'm in a cesspool called Washington or a swamp called Washington, so it'll be virtually impossible to get rid of every leak. But I think we can take dramatic steps to get rid of leaks. Now, one of the big problems here that I'm discovering in the comms team is that senior people are really the guys doing the leaking, and they ask junior people to leak for them. And so I'm very proud to be reporting directly to the president so that I can hermetically seal off the comms team from this sort of nonsense.
Wow. America's top law enforcement officer, Jeff Sessions, is also on leak patrol. The AG is expected to announce several criminal leak investigations very soon. Government leaks have frustrated President Trump immensely through his 6 months in office. In recent days, he's publicly put pressure on Sessions to get tougher on leaks and other matters. Newt Gingrich cautions the president against firing his attorney general, but does think there needs to be major reform at the DOJ.
I think the president has every right to be very, very upset. I think that from his perspective, and that happens to be my perspective also, the Justice Department has elements of it that are out of control, that are corrupt, that are very left-wing.
Well, let's start with the leaks first, Dana. Scaramucci said something fascinating to me, that actual communications guys were telling the junior communications staffers to leak on their behalf. That's nuts.
Okay, but that's actually not what I heard him say just there. What he was saying is that, one, he's glad he reports directly to the president. In my experience, all assistants to the president report directly to the president, and you coordinate through the chief of staff. So I don't actually think that that's new, unless the current chief of staff was trying to change that when Scaramucci was coming in. That's possible. Second, what I heard him say is that he is glad that now he can protect the communications staff, and especially those junior staffers, from people who were trying to get them to leak on their behalf. To me, what he was saying is that that was coming from outside of the communications shop, so that he's trying to, one, to get some solidarity with his communications team, which sounds good, but that sounds pretty juicy.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that actually happening. In my experience, like trying to think that if, let's see, that Josh Bolton tried to tell my assistant press secretary without my knowing to leak something in particular about what had just happened in the Oval Office. I mean, it is inconceivable.
So you would take the fall if it hit the fan. That's a bullying tactic for a boss to do that to a junior staffer, I think.
Well, absolutely, especially if he's doing an investigation and he's finding out that these junior staffers are telling them, well, look, I didn't want to leak that, but they told me my job was on the line if I didn't. I mean, that is just astounding.
Leaks, unbelievable.
In the White House.
So Jeff Sessions also now looking at some of these leaks, and we had a list put together by our brain room here at Fox News of all these national security leaks. I put that in quotes. I'm just, short story. My liberal aunt one time, when I told her Fox News has a brain room, she goes, that must be a pretty small room, Jeff. But a lot of people don't know what the brain room is. It's a great room. But there's so many that we could the phone calls Trump made with heads of state, Oval Office conversations he had with the Russians, Flynn's call to the ambassador, the name of the Manchester bombing suspect. I mean, the list goes on and on. Do you think Sessions is going to be able to achieve any results with these leak investigations?
No, I don't. And also, you know, I've been a White House reporter. I know how leaks work. This is not how leaks work. It's not that somebody is putting pressure on a junior guy to go leak. People leak because they have a grudge, they have an agenda, they want to get attention, they want to float trial balloons. And in this case, there's so many different factions within the Trump White House that everybody is trying to look out for themselves. In just the dynamic that Dana described to you, where most people would come and coordinate through the chief of staff to get to the president, what you hear from Scaramucci, and what struck me in his statement was he's going directly to the president. So he's bypassing Reince Priebus. Not good news, Mr. Priebus.
But can I say something? I do think that there is a distinction here between what Jeff Sessions is looking into and what White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci is talking about. The criminal leaks, when you're talking about these national security issues, that actually, you might be able to track those down, and you might be able to do something with those. The leaks about sort of intrigue within the White House and gossip about like that kind of leak, that's not something that Jeff Sessions should even bother looking into, but they should try to stop at the White House.
And the national security leaks are really what is the most concerning here, because not only do they obviously undermine the Trump administration, but they undermine our national security as well. And we saw this play out when the UK temporarily paused intelligence sharing with the United States over the Manchester bombing incident and the leaks of that information. And look, Secretary Kelly said back in April that we're facing terrorist threats as high as 9/11. So at a time where we're facing such great threats, why would we want to undermine intelligence sharing with our allies that could potentially keep America safe? So, of course, this is an important issue. The Attorney General absolutely should be going after this and trying to find the leakers and punish them as well.
Maybe you should go and visit Donald Trump, who was talking about some of our sources and spy work over in Israel.
Is that what happened, Juan? I missed that leak.
It's not on your list.
The brain room didn't catch that one. Well, you're a Democrat, President. You're fighting one war. You're fighting a war against the Republicans. A Republican president has to fight the Democrats and also has to fight the media. Now, President Trump has a three-pronged war. The media, the Democrats, and people within his own government who are leaking to hurt him. I mean, that's a lot of work this guy's got.
Exactly. I like how Scaramucci described himself as a front stabber.
Not aggressive move.
He stabs you in the front because Trump is a front stabber too. See, he'll lash out at you, but you know when he's angry with you. You know when he's upset. Obviously, we see what he's doing with Sessions. He never hides, behind anything. So and I think the people who appreciate Trump, they're all front stabbers. They don't mind if you stab them, but they want to see who it is who's stabbing them. So the front stabbers, they might be obnoxious, but the back stabbers, those are the leakers.
And at least you see it coming, so you cannot try.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's the thing. Juan, you said there was many factions in the White House. What are there besides anti-Trump and pro-Trump? Those are the only two I can count.
No, I think that these leaks,
Go ahead, Dave.
I just do think there is a distinction between the ones that are actually trying to undermine the president and his policies or to disrupt something in regards to national security, like the ones Jesse asked the brain room to talk about, and then there are others that just make the White House look chaotic, and that's actually coming from inside the White House.
Well, what's their interest, the chaotic ones?
Well, it's just contrary to my experience, but let's just say that, reporters call everybody in the White House, and there was something in Playbook today, Political Playbook, that said if Scaramucci believes that these leaks are coming from the communications department, he's got another thing coming to them, because that's not where they're getting the leaks from.
But the palace intrigue stories and even the leaks on the personnel level also hurts the Trump administration because it creates this atmosphere, one of chaos and distrust internally within the White House, and that it also changes voters' perspective as well of what the White House looks like. Feeling like maybe it's not operational,
I think voters are blowing that off.
Well, but also even with Republicans on Capitol Hill as well, it could also have an impact in Republicans feeling like the White House is not.
Just to wrap up, I want to get 2 points in, and one is to say to you, Tom, that you have someone, let's say, who wants more influence with the president, and you have a division, let's say, between a Steve Bannon. This is all hypothetical. I'm not saying this is real. But let's say between a Bannon and a Kushner wing of the party in terms of their political views and the impact on policy being decided by the president, you can imagine that if they lose out or they're not getting heard, they're going to the press.
Well, Bannon's a front stabber.
I want to go on the record. I am a front stabber and a back stabber. I do both at the same time. Other big news in Washington today, a vote on an amendment to repeal Obamacare without a replacement failed in the Senate. 7 Republicans joined all Democrats earlier in a 45-55 vote, defeating the plan. So I just want to read the names of the Republican senators who voted against repealing Obamacare. Susan Collins in Maine, Shelley Moore Capito, West Virginia, John McCain, Arizona, Rob Portman, Ohio, Lamar Alexander, Tennessee, Lisa Murkowski, Alaska, and Dean Heller of Nevada. I just want to make sure the audience knows who these people were. Dana, how do we look on health care?
I still think that something will pass.
Okay.
They're calling this new rendition of it is a skinny repeal.
Yeah.
And like if you're a woman, you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. How much is that? Does that cost more? Now, I understand that 10 governors have just come out with a letter right before we came to air that says that skinny repeal, that is not for us. But I do think that they'll be able to get something out of the Senate that will allow them to get to conference. I think about these 7 senators that you just read off their names about their decision. And Peggy Noonan on Saturday in her Wall Street Journal column said something very interesting about how when you're on the ground and you're in your own state, you are looking at the topography of the politics, and that in the last 8 years with President Obama, lots of things changed, and that people have more anxieties, and they don't expect change necessarily in Washington to be good for them. And so I think what we end up with now is that there's really not a strong Republican Party of smaller government. It's variations on a theme of bigger government and how government should actually work. And that is disconcerting to a lot of conservatives who think that we should have just taken this opportunity to repeal it and move on. That's obviously not going to happen here, but I think that what they're doing is reacting to their constituents.
And they are, because some of these states that we name the senators of, these are states that are very independent-minded states, like a Maine or something like that, or West Virginia, Nevada. These states really hang in the balance around election time, so these aren't really hardcore Republican states.
I agree with that, but I also think there's an element of cowardice and hypocrisy here as well, because a lot of these senators...
You don't say. In the Republican Party, you don't say.
A lot of these senators took votes, obviously, when the bill would not go anywhere. Right. They knew it wasn't going to reach the president's desk when President Obama was in office. And now when we actually do have both bodies of Congress, we have the White House, we can actually enact law on a party line basis, mind you, through the reconciliation process, to make changes to Obamacare and attempt to repeal it. And now they suddenly don't have the courage because it's real. Yeah. Because these changes are actually going to be implemented. So if you're their constituency, I would be pretty darn angry, considering the fact that, you know, they lied to you for 7 years.
Well, clear the children from the room. Close their ears.
I said darn.
Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy by Republicans. I never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, they learned it from you guys.
You should know well, yeah. I was going to say.
But I will say this, on the skinny repeal that Dana was talking about, because they've lost now 3 votes over the course. They just keep losing votes to try to repeal. And the key point is that they have not come up with something that's better than Obamacare, something that insures more people, that lessens premiums, and they're coming down now to this skinny repeal idea, which is do away with the individual mandate, do away with the corporate mandate for companies with more than 50 employees, do away with the tax on medical devices. So what happens? Oh, according to the CBO, you lose 15 million people, 15 lose their insurance, premiums up 20%. Is that better for America?
I'll tell you.
No one wants high premiums.
Yeah, you lose the 15 million. Most of those people, they lose it because they drop it. They don't want it. You lose that mandate, that's where you lose the millions of people. So I want the skinny. I'm going to call it the lifestyle lift.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing? Yes. This is one thing that's actually working in the favor of Republicans is being done by a Democrat. Steve Daines is going to force a vote, and Democrats will have to decide about single-payer health care. And then they'll be on the record supporting single-payer health care. And I actually think that while he thinks he's trying to help Democrats,
the smartest thing to come out of the Republican Senate all year.
Helping Republicans, buying Democrats.
By the way, the most interesting thing today was, so you had President Trump tweeting that Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, let down the country and calling it shameful. Murkowski fired back. It was and said, you know what? Every day is not about elections. How about governing the country? Wow.
Wow, she's a front stabber.
Lisa, she's a front stabber. Lisa could almost get primaried if she keeps that up.